Cambridge Arts Roundup with Simon Bertin.
Cambridge Radio.
Hello, I'm Simon Bertin and welcome to Cambridge Arts Roundup, where we'll let a historical cat out of some bags, take in ghostly frights, and hear about a new way to sell artwork in Cambridge city centre. In this edition, we join Cambridge University's Dr. Marina Velez Vago and visit the Archaeology and Anthropology Museum to find out what makes a certain familiar object more than a little intriguing as a key to a truer account of human history. We investigate the qualities of ghost stories written by women at Cambridge's Leper Chapel with In Situ Theatre's Richard Spall as he prepares for a new series, Ghost Stories 1, 2 and 3. Photographer, filmmaker and poet Jazz Chada goes to Stapleford Granary to visit multidisciplinary artist Harry Corey Wright, and Polish artist Isabel Imiolsek talks about the move to repurpose public spaces in Cambridge to enhance art experiences and showcase art as of key importance to selling early in her career. What would you say was the most important invention in history? Most people would simply answer the wheel or weapons like the spear, but you might consider something else as a more realistic candidate. The humble carrier bag, for instance. Why? Because on reflection it's probably the most utilised object in human life and pretty much always has been since ancient times. Feminist writers Elizabeth Fisher and Ursula Le Guin contest narratives on how human evolution took place through history, derived from masculine hunting stories of heroism, as less important accounts than those of less heroic narratives of the everyday gathering of food and necessities as more real, where the carrier bag was central to life, and certainly for women. Because bags are often at the centre of so much of life's daily drama, they really need looking into in terms of our relationship with them and the historical clues to our development that they may indeed contain. This leads us towards new insights known as the carrier bag theory of evolution. That's according to a University of Cambridge lecturer at Pace, Dr. Marina Velez Vago. She's been studying remarkable bags from around the world through the ages, made through every kind of material, including even quite shockingly a whole armadillo. I caught up with Marina at the Archaeology and Anthropology Museum, and after briefly studying an Anthony Gormley installation set in the courtyard paving, we looked at some exotic bags from history and why they aroused her interest as offering an alternative perspective on historical facts, as an academic teaching philosophy, history, art and art practices. Here we are at the Museum of Anthropology and I'm here with Marina Velez Vago. Marina, what are you doing here in Cambridge?
Well, I've been living here for 20 years and teaching and mainly learning from my students and doing some research.
And you made a discovery here in the upstairs part of the museum of some considerable interest.
Yes, I've been busy with this carrier bag theory of evolution for quite a while, and I looked at it from an artistic point of view, but also anthropological point of view and philosophical. And I saw these bags in the museum, and immediately I thought we need to make a project.
Now, we've just been looking at all of these wonderful woven bags with all kinds of wonderful patterns on them in different configurations. They're very sort of tactile bags that we've been looking at. What has your exhibition or your exposition been about?
We engaged in a dialogical exploration of the bags. The bags were used as entry points for talking about the carrier bag theory. And I invited a fellow colleague and artist, Julieta Aranda, who is from Mexico, but she's based in Berlin, so she works there, and she came over to discuss these theories from an artistic point of view, using, as I said, the carrier bags as entry points.
Now, obviously, lots of people believe that the most important invention in history from ancient times at any rate, was in fact the wheel. But you're contesting that, aren't you? Because bags go back long before the wheel, and they're still being used in so many versatile ways. How does the argument go?
Exactly. So the idea in anthropology is that the first tools that humans, Homo sapiens, made were were weapons in reality. So because these were the ones that survived, like spears or clubs or things like that, because they were made out of stones. But then in 1970s, Elizabeth Fisher, an anthropologist, comes more from a feminist thinking point of view, and she suggested that it could have been some sort of carrier also. This idea of making a container to contain things, to carry babies, food, extend your area of exploration, etc. So that's what is known in the field as the carrier-bag theory of evolution. So bringing all these objects that allowed us to develop as a race, as human beings, not just to kill each other or hunt, but also to collaborate and to gather.
Tell me about this Ursula Le Guin thing.
Yes, so the feminist theories that started with Elizabeth Fisher, the carrier-bag theory of evolution, they were picked up by other feminist thinkers, for instance, Ursula Le Guin, and she developed that idea into the carrier-bag theory of fiction. And she talked about narratives, and she talked about that she doesn't want to talk anymore to write about heroes, hunters anymore. She wants to talk about the less heroic act of gathering in your bag, that everyday gathering, everyday care. And then that was also picked up by Donna Haraway in a similar way, talking about this, the idea of a carrier bag of the bad Anthropocene, so how to stay with the trouble of the environmental degradation and stay with it as if it was a carrier bag of care, so not to discard, not to try to find solutions for everything, big heroic solutions, but to stay with this carrier-bag theory of fiction that Ursula Le Guin spearheaded and say, well, partial solutions to partial problems. And that's what we are doing also. Julieta and I want to continue doing.
And bags had the most amount of utility.
Absolutely, because it freed up your hands to do other things. If you had the carrier bag attached to your body temporarily by this umbilical cord that is the bag, the sling or whatever it is, that the strap, and then your hands are free.
What other inventions has archaeology revealed that you think are particularly interesting in terms of harnessing man's inventiveness in the journey for survival and all that kind of stuff?
Well, that's a really, really interesting question, because all the questions about evolution, they tend to go. They tend to be focused on exceptionalism. That Homo sapiens is exceptional in the sense that we developed so much, we evolved so much, and we are so successful to the point of environmental degradation, right? So coming back to your question, what are the objects? There are ways of actualizing that conversation in which we looked at not elements of inventiveness for survival in the sense of oppressing other species or other ideas, and the strongest idea wins, but also looking at caring as a strategy for survival. And the carrier bag theory of evolution has a lot to say about that.
So how does the theory work? Give us a quick rundown.
So if you are caring, it's been proven now that the Homo sapiens is very successful because it has a very extended childhood. So we have a long time to develop our brains, to learn from others, from our adults, from the environment around us, and that prolonged childhood needs a lot of care. And so those who do the caring certainly would have developed some sort of carrier. And this is when the conversation gets a little bit more exciting, because when you use the metaphor of the carrier bag into, say, other things, could we be looking at language as a carrier bag for meaning? Can we look at artistic practices as carrier bags for creativity and so forth? So what is the carrier bag? Can we look at museums as a carrier bag for collections and for us to learn, to visit, and these objects that are there, so etc.
Do you think people sort of make emotional ties towards equipment that is so important for their survival, for their daily use, for their utility, that actually they're more bags and other small pieces of equipment actually are something that we kind of take a kind of an emotional ownership of, that we personalise, that we pattern, like some of the bags here in the
Exactly.
museum? Yeah.
So some of the bags that we saw here are they have these very intricate patterns and drawings, and they carry themselves certain language, visual language of communication. And the bags that we engage with in our conversations, some of them are very intricately woven, and they have patterns and all sorts of drawings, and they carry meaning. Those patterns.
Are they religiously or culturally significant?
Well, the bags that survive that are very old, we don't know. We can actualize also these meanings now. Some of them are mathematicals. They can carry map out cartographies of kinship and affective cartographies to the land, to animals, to each other. Equally, the bag is a carrier of other things. So sometimes what you put in the bag is more important than the bag itself. So the bag is what Tim Ingle would say when the object starts activating its function, you activate the object through its function, it ceases to exist. So the same as when you see a pair of reading glasses on the table, you see the glasses, but when you put them on and then you start reading, you stop seeing the glasses. And this is similar with the carrier bag. You stop looking at the carrier bag as an element. And the carrier bag can be folded and can be also put into other carrier bags. We selected bags from that were somehow linked to our culture. So I'm Argentinian, and I was born in Argentina, and Julieta was born in Mexico. And we selected bags from Latin America. And the bags that we long listed from the museum, some of them were not accessible, some of them that were kept in conditions, but they cannot be refrigerated or anti-moth or whatever. We selected some bags that we agreed they held specific significance for us that we wanted to talk about. Some bags had text on them, some bags drawings and patterns, and some were made out of animal skins or animal bones, the carcass.
Can you give me some examples of particularly interesting ones, or most beautiful bags that you found, or most strange or versatile ones?
Oh God, they're all beautiful. We fell in love with each of them. But we selected 10 bags, and some of the bags that were made out of animals, they held a particular significance to us, because we discussed this idea of the double death, the death of the animal when it's hunted, and then the death of the animal when it's repurposed into another thing. So the skin is made out of that. But one in particular was made out of an armadillo carcass, or whatever you call it, the outer part of the armadillo, and it was very intriguing because it's very rigid, cannot be folded, cannot be flattened. So the bag has one shape and one shape only, and we didn't understand what it was used for, and we did some research, and it turns out that it's for putting seeds of corn in there, so for sowing. So that the fact that the armadillo, the bag, is almost spherical and allows for the seeds to be there without getting damp or crushed, that's very convenient. And the opening was the opening for a hand, so the hand could go in.
It sounds like a very fertile bag. Okay, so you've been doing something very interesting So what's been going on at the nuclear shelter, because you were involved in an event there, weren't you?
Exactly. So we conducted the interview there. Well, it was a conversation that was videoed, and that is going to be edited and made into a piece. And this is the Center for Material Culture that was opened recently, and is repurposing this bunker that was made for in case of nuclear war many years ago, and is a perfect place for hosting and for holding the collection, because it has no windows, no natural light, and so forth. And it was a very interesting space where to talk about a carrier bag, a container of things. So to think about a building that was meant to contain people in the case of nuclear disaster. Yeah.
Okay, so I mean, looking at the carrier bag, how do you think the carrier bag has evolved? And also, how do you think that bags will be used in settings like in outer space and things like that? Because astronauts have bags. Bags are important for space exploration.
That's fascinating. Fascinating. So I think we started looking back at the bags that survived and in the collection, and the idea that they are so brittle and fragile because they are made with natural materials is that they don't resist the pass of time, and some of them were not. We couldn't open them, so they are not serving the purpose of bags as a carrier of things, but this idea of carrier of meaning rather than things. And then we looked at what it means to have a bag here in the present, and particularly this idea of bag as something very personal to you, that you carry your computer, your keys, your things, your mobile phone. So the bag as a statement as well, with the brands and all of that, and it's not dissimilar with the bags that we looked from certain tribes, that the bags are made and gifted to each other, and they are not meant to contain anything, but they are meant to be worn, to be, to carry as a symbol of someone made this for me. And in the future, as you say, astronauts, they need bags to collect samples, to keep safe, to bring back to Earth, and to collect all sorts of things. We know that they put whatever they produce with their bodily fluids and so forth in bags. So bags are essential when you don't have space. But
there seems to be a kind of centre of drama, don't they? Because if you showed a time-lapse film of a bag being used, you would see all kinds of interactions with that object. People running in and out of rooms, putting things in it, losing it, using it for lots of multiple purposes, feeling lost without it.
Yes.
And then obviously decorating it,
yes.
Attaching emotional possession,
exactly.
kind of reasoning to it, some meaning to it, and then you have the stranger and stranger uses that people put them to.
And now the bag for life that supermarkets, when it was, so we have the plastic bag that is so ubiquitous and it's everywhere when you go to the countryside and the sea, and you see these bags. So the good bag and the bad bag. We are going to edit the video that we filmed there. That dialogue is going to be used to shown to students. It's going to be used in a future exhibition. We're going to write a paper. I want to present at a future conference. And the bags will be available for to see them in the archive. So we can share the numbers, and so people can go and see them. We watched this space by looking at the website of the Center for Material Culture, our personal websites, marinavelez.com and Julieta Aranda, and we are going to disseminate, of course, we're going to tell Cambridge Radio and you, Simon, when that happens, so people can access.
Marina, thank you very much indeed for talking to Cambridge Radio. When was the last time you had something of a fright over a sense that reality might indeed have a supernatural chink in it that you might have seriously overlooked? Well, it might be time to deal with that curious itch and take in a ghost story or two in a setting that's perhaps a little eerie, drawing you in. I ventured down to the Leper Chapel to find out about strange goings-on being advertised by Artistic Director of In Situ Theatre Richard Spall. On arrival in the evening, I heard the sounds of desperate wails within, and as my blood ran cold, I tapped on the huge wooden door, not sure if I should dare to enter. Richard Spall was rehearsing telling his ghost stories by female writers from the early 20th century. In Elizabeth Bowen's Pink May, a woman cheats on her husband and is haunted by a female ghost. And in Edith Wharton's Miss Mary Pask, a man travelling in Europe visits the house of a friend's sister, a sister whom he subsequently recalls died a year earlier. Spall uses no props in his performance and no special effects, preferring to generate atmosphere with his acting, storytelling talents and vocal range to bring dramatic situations to life as experimental theatre exploiting the Wolfson Hart approach of sounding or extended voice, which he also teaches. This enables him to really get to you in a way that's proving popular, and he shared some thoughts on the project that centres on a certain pleasing terror. Richard, tell me a little bit about yourself. What's your background?
I'm artistic director of one of the artistic directors of In Situ, and we started 25 years ago doing work that was not in ordinary theatre buildings. So that's the stimulus for it. I mean, before that I did lots of experimental theatre of different kinds. And about 10 years ago, I was a bit of a gap as far as doing solo work, because I'd done very little. I'd done a lot of directing, a lot of ensemble work, and so I wanted to concentrate on that and find ways of doing that. Like a lot of teenagers, I really loved ghost stories, especially the vintage ones from the end of the 19th century and the beginning of the 20th century. Me and loads of my school friends, we read all of M.R. James and The Turn of the Screw. There's loads of amazing stuff there. I think it has a very, very strong appeal. So that started coming back to me. There's another practitioner who's got M.R. James pretty much covered, so I didn't want to work on that. But so I chose some other ones.
I was hearing, as I came to the door, some ghostly wailings going on. You were rehearsing, I take it?
Yeah, that's from Hamlet. That's the ghost in Hamlet you were hearing there, yeah. I mean, the stories that I'm doing ghost stories, they're not, I hesitate to use the word true, but you know what I mean. There are sort of factual legends about ghosts. It doesn't mean they really exist. But mine is from the literary tradition. I'm working with two very gifted women ghost story writers. Well, they're women writers from the early part of the 20th century. American writer Edith Wharton wrote some, friend of Henry James, and protege of him, and she wrote some remarkable ghost stories of which, and there's an Anglo-Irish writer called Elizabeth Bowen, and she did some extraordinary ghost stories that are set in the London Blitz in early 1940s. I'm doing one of them, a story called Pink May, and I'm very drawn to these women writers. You know, we mentioned M.R. James, Henry James earlier, very dominated by male writers, and these are two extremely original, gifted women writers, and for the obvious reasons, they're not as well known as the male writers, surprise, surprise, and so I wanted to explore their work as much as I could.
What typifies a ghost story, a successful one, in your opinion?
I think, for me, the sort of ghost is revealed, and there we are. There's a ghost. We're in the world of the supernatural, and there isn't really any doubt about it. I'm less keen. A lot of people are, but I'm less keen on those sorts of obviously spooky things. The ghost stories I'm doing, and the ones I really love and I'm looking for, and I think Elizabeth Bowen says something about that they are fractionally out of kilter with ordinary reality. It's not fantasy. The world looks normal, but it's got a little crack in it, and a really gifted writer will work inside that little space to create a feeling of the uncanny or suspense or whatever it is they want. Of course, I very much believe in ghosts as a cultural and literary and psychic phenomenon, and find the whole culture and literature are very, very fascinating, and that's why I've been exploring it. I was sort of fascinated with the edges of our experience. For me, that's not as interesting. I'm not really that. I was when I was 14. I'm not now so much about, is there really something? So all these stories, the real life stories, as it were, seem eventually to come down to often to fairly obvious fraud. I'm fascinated by ghosts as a historical, psychological, and especially literary, theatrical phenomenon.
Now, obviously, the Leopard Chapel, where we're sitting now, is a wonderful venue for telling ghost stories because it's very cold and empty, and it has great acoustics. And people are drawn towards it, aren't they? I mean, scores of people are going to come in here in an evening to chill themselves by the ghostly fire, particularly, aren't they? And there seems to be a great appetite for that kind of thing.
There's a story called Pink May by Elizabeth Bowen. As I mentioned, that's set in the Blitz, and there's a woman has moved in with her husband into a new house that appears to have been vacated, maybe by a soldier who's been killed in the war or something or other's happened. However, the important point for her is that she's having an affair. She's having an extramarital affair. Her husband works in the War Office or something like that, and is never around. And she is really looking for some extramarital fun. She's a rather shallow woman, I suppose, and it's all told from her point of view. A very fascinating character, and but she finds that every time she dresses in her room to go out, there is a ghost there that's disrupting her, messing around with her clothes, messing around with her makeup, and above all, implanting critical ideas in her head. Guilt tripping her about, for example, and telling her that she doesn't look as good as she used to, telling her that she's too old for it, and things like that. So what we would now maybe call a sort of persecuting superego or something like that. And this, as the story progresses, this starts by being a bit silly, and it just gets worse and worse, more and more preoccupying, and obsesses her, frightens her. This ghost never gets revealed to us, but it does succeed in warping her consciousness and her life in this terrible and fascinating way. I won't.
How important is having a fright in a ghost story?
Oh, it's quite important. Yeah. It's quite important. Ghost stories. A ghost story that simply isn't frightening, I don't think quite. There are other aspects to it. There's a lot of melancholy. There's a lot of stuff to do with sadness, stuff to do with loss is involved in ghosts and hauntings as well. But I think both the stories I tell are, in very, very different ways, are frightening. I think they are. People say they are. I feel they are. They're not frightening in opening a cupboard and a skeleton falling out. It's not that sort of frightening. They're psychological thrillers, I suppose. Yep.
Well, what do you think the function of ghost stories is in society?
Oh, well, there are not that many being written now. The heyday of ghost stories was, strangely enough, right at the peak of scientific rationalism. Exactly the moment when people, in general, I think, started to think that there weren't any. And it's fascinating that it's at exactly that moment that they burst out as a mental and literary and social phenomenon.
How does religious faith come into that?
Well, I think it possibly does, in that's beginning to, I mean, it's a complicated story, of course it is, but that's beginning to decay, let's say in Britain, round about that time, whereas it had been everybody really had a religious faith up to that point. Round about the end of the 19th century, that's beginning to stop with Darwin or all sorts of different things, and I think that creates this kind of strange gap, uncertainty, where we're not quite sure what the edges of our lives and experience is. These very gifted writers, they step into that gap and create some amazing stuff. My work doesn't go any further than about 1960, I think. I haven't done anything more contemporary than that. A lot of stuff in the early 20th century, and that really is its heyday, and people still absolutely love it. You mentioned how popular M.R. James is, I mean, especially in Cambridge. He's a Cambridge phenomenon.
Richard Spall, thank you very much indeed for talking to Cambridge Radio. It's been most interesting.
My pleasure. Thank you, Simon.
Cambridge Arts Roundup with Simon Bertin.
Cambridge Radio.
There's nothing quite like a nice glass of wine and to take in an art exhibition in one of the many galleries in the sticks as the weather warms up and we become artistically curious. Harry Corey Wright is a multidisciplinary artist whose work is concerned with and explores a sense of place and a range of visual experiences we have whilst being in a landscape. He works with graphite, watercolours and inks, sculptural reliefs, and most recently immersive installations with the project 600 Pieces of Landscape. He's concerned with the meaning of why we find being in a landscape an often overwhelming experience. By breaking down the visual process to the bare bones of time and place, he hopes to reveal something about our perception of place and why it seems to stir us. Photographer, filmmaker and poet Jazz Charter has recently been to see him at Stapleford Granary and shared this with us.
It's wonderful to join Harry Corey Wright at the launch of his new exhibition 600 Pieces of Landscape at the Stapleford Granary. Harry, what drives you to create as an artist?
Well, I don't know. I have a passion for landscape, and I have a passion for exploring the ideas about why we fall in love with landscapes and what holds us in a space and what bewitches us. And I spend a life of trying to work out what those basic elements are.
Your new exhibition at the Granary is shaped by the chalk stream landscape here. How does your relationship to nature inform your process?
Gosh, well, I think nature is something that we're all inherently amongst and within, and landscape, nature, it's all the same sort of thing. And I've always been particularly drawn to landscapes that are chalky. There's something about the dry, particularly this time of year, this sort of dry nature of a chalky landscape with a river running through it that is both dry and wet. And I've just loved all that, and the colours that the colours that a chalky landscape will provide. So I don't know, and it's just a relationship, yes, but it's just also a kind of whole, I don't know, it's just a world of art is a wonderful privilege to be able to explore all ideas about how we belong and what we like, and it's just a fun journey for me. Great fun.
How can texture and colour shape our relationship with the world?
That's a good question. I certainly in this show, as you've seen, that all the pieces that are literally the pieces, little wooden pieces, coloured, toned pieces of wood that I've made, are all representations of the elements of what make up landscape. And I feel that by dismantling, if you like, or deconstructing the elements of landscape, we are then in a position to kind of rearrange them and put that landscape back together. And in doing so, and in making such a little formation of an artist, formation of a piece of art, as you are encouraged to do in the shed, you are investigating your relationship with that landscape.
You collaborate with sound artist Rob Godman for this show. How does sound influence your practice?
Well, it's been a very particular and fun journey with Rob Godman. I mean, in that he has composed this piece which is made up of the deconstruction of sounds that you would find in a chalk stream environment, both inside the water and outside. So he has sort of made this piece that does very much the audio version of what I'm doing visually, which is creating the very basic elements of landscape. So you're encouraged to see something that is deconstructed and thereby somehow unfamiliar, but being a chalky landscape, you are aware that it is completely familiar. It is, and that is to me quite interesting territory of familiar and unfamiliar. That provides good territory to explore one's own thoughts.
Who are the artists and craftsmen you admire the most?
I'm not sure. I love the writers of landscape. I love Robert McFarlane, what he does. I love poets. I love all sorts of folk musicians who explore the experience of being in landscape, both romantic. I also kind of like the science, I have to say. I kind of like the way that we're learning about these landscapes. We're learning about, through our artists and through our scientists, how to make our relationship with landscape a positive thing and not just a romantic thing. But we need always to draw on Thomas Hardy to give us a basic start of how to know how we belong.
Is there a dream project you would love to realise in the future?
Yes, I would like to know and have the ability to sit still in a landscape for a whole day without moving.
Is there somewhere in particular you have in mind?
I don't know. Could be a tea plantation in China, but probably it would be beside a tidal creek in North Norfolk.
And what would you love to see realised in that project?
I would like to feel that. I just like to feel comfortable. I think that's what we all want from our landscape, just to feel that we belong.
What advice do you have for emerging young artists today?
Stay busy, keep looking, enjoy things you don't understand, and practice. Something like that.
Harry, it's been a pleasure speaking to you today. 600 Pieces of Landscape is open at Stapleford Granary in Shelford now until the 31st of August.
Thank you. It's been fun.
A central problem for up-and-coming artists in the city is finding low-cost platforms from which to sell new art in Cambridge, but there's hope on the horizon which may enable new art businesses to showcase work effectively. Cambridge City Council has installed attractive-looking art benches near Christ's Pieces in the busy shopping passage, which can be accessed digitally with a QR code and have the capacity to immediately upload and display up to 12 A3-sized artworks at any one time. The good news is that it's absolutely free. Local artist Izabela Imiolsek studied at the Academy of Fine Art in Krakow in Poland before moving to Cambridge, and she says the feature is designed to make use of public art spaces more creatively, and it aligns with promoting her new business interests. You're an up-and-coming artist in Cambridge. How difficult is it for you to find platforms to sell your art on?
It is really hard to find a place you can exhibit your artwork. My paintings, oil paintings, this is the first in Cambridge, of course, and I'm trying to sell silk scarves transferred from my paintings into the silk, and this is very beautiful product. and I'm trying to sell that also. And the last time I prepared my books, like coloring books and stuff like that.
So you've been looking for cost-effective ways in which to market these things and to found an art business in Cambridge to survive as an artist. How have the City Council helped you in terms of their support of artists in Cambridge? One thing that I've seen you do is exhibit on Cambridge's art benches, which is something new that's arrived in Cambridge. These are around near Christ's Peace, down towards the shopping mall. Very smart little places where you can view the art. Has that been helpful?
Yes, this is very nice opportunity for artists, I think, and I'm really happy. My work is already there for about, I think, 3 months, more or less. And there are my 3 pieces of my oil paintings, but this is just photos.
Now, what do you think of the policy of repurposing lots of public spaces in Cambridge so that people can take in art very conveniently, in terms of sculptural works, in terms of exhibition spaces, in terms of changing the nature of the way we use public places in Cambridge? Do you think that's going to be important for artists?
I think it's a good opportunity. It's a good idea. As I said, it's good because it's for free, and this is very important. If you can sometimes even pay, but after when you sell your products, you can your art, you can pay commission, but not necessarily pay before you exhibit. In the future, I would like to open people's eyes for art, especially for art, like how art is important for every of us, because it help us to open up, to understand more each other. And actually, my art, my inspiration are from nature. And I learn a lot from nature, and I can recommend it to everyone to spend more time with nature and have a moment with art as well.
Do you think having a kind of, what I'm saying is a kind of psychological relationship with nature will help to save the planet, do you think?
Yes, absolutely. Our understanding. I am also giving art lessons, and which is I teach people how to draw, how to paint.
You paint with a knife, don't you?
Yes.
And you paint wonderful natural impressionist landscapes and things like that. They're very, very colourful. And you exhibit quite often in Cambridge as well.
Yes, I used to.
Yeah. So
I'm painting from my heart, really. When I am in surrounding with nature.
Isabel, thank you very much.
Thank you, Simon.
Well, my glass of wine is finally empty, so I'll bid you goodbye once again. But of course, I'll be back with more tales of creative Cambridge soon. I hope you've enjoyed the Cambridge Arts Roundup Hour. I'm Simon Bertin, and you've been listening to Cambridge Radio on 105 FM.